People of a certain age will remember the comedian Flip Wilson. Flip Wilson appeared on a variety of TV shows in the 60s and 70s, and one of the characters he played was a brash woman named Geraldine Jones, whose favorite line was, "The devil made me do it." Whatever Geraldine did that she shouldn't have done, like buy an expensive dress she couldn't afford, she simply would blame it on the devil. Her line became what we would now call a meme. That is, many of us repeated it whenever we did something we shouldn't have done. Problem is, many of us believe it, and that is a problem. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. All this week I'm exploring the phenomenon of temptation. It's something all of us face all the time, so much so that we often don't realize that we are being tempted. On Monday I suggested that the first temptation is to be like God, to try to stand on equal footing with God. We saw that this was what tempted Eve when the serpent offered her the so-called forbidden fruit. In that very same story, when God confronts Adam and Eve about it, they succumb to the second temptation, which is to deflect blame onto others. One particular way we often do this is to blame our actions on the devil, the tempter. Like Flip Wilson's Geraldine Jones, we say, "The devil made me do it." And this sounds reasonable until we think about it just a little bit. The first question we might ask is whether or not there is a Satan, a devil running around out there tempting everyone all the time. And while I've never personally experienced Satan, at least not that I know of, I have definitely experienced dark forces at work in the world. More than that, Scripture certainly attests that there is a satanic character whose job seems to be to tempt people. What's tricky here is that we have endowed this figure with all sorts of powers and characteristics far beyond what Scripture does. And even in the Scriptures themselves, the figure of Satan is a sort of moving target. In the book of Job, for example, Satan is actually a member of God's council, whose job is to be sort of an adversary. But the classic text about the devil is the story of the temptation of Jesus after his baptism and before he begins his public ministry. We read this story on the first Sunday of Lent. Here's Matthew's version of that story. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was famished. The tempter came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But he answered, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and placed him on the pinnacle of the temple, saying to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up, so that you will not dash your foot against a stone." Jesus said to him, "Again it is written, do not put the Lord your God to the test." Again, the devil took him up to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. And he said to him, "All these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me." Jesus said to him, "Away with you, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him." Then the devil left him, and suddenly angels came and waited on him. We'll come back to this passage in a day or so, but what is relevant today is the idea that there is a tempter. Or to put it in different terms, there are forces outside of us, as well as within us, that place temptation before us. And it's easy to blame the tempter, whoever that may be, for making us fail. But that in itself is a deadly temptation. Not just the current object of our temptation, but the temptation to blame someone else for causing us to be tempted in the first place, just because they've placed temptation in our path. Look, people do place temptation before us all the time. And it's not just Satan either. And shame on them for willfully tempting us. But the responsibility for giving into that temptation lies directly on us. We cannot avoid responsibility by saying, "The devil made me do it." No, The devil or whoever else may have put temptation out there, we are the ones who choose to act. This is really just another example of the temptation of Adam and Eve to lay blame for their actions on others, including God, rather than to accept responsibility for their actions. So, Flip Wilson's Geraldine Jones got it exactly wrong. The devil didn't make her do it. She did it herself. Tomorrow, the temptation to feel superior to others. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.